No, Andrew,
No.
your father. Original father.
My father?
Yes.
Dad? Mark Andrews? What?
No, your actual father. Your actual father with
Orlando
the
Pace.
Yeah.
You're listening to Behind the Lines, a podcast presented by inplayLIVE and powered by Pinnacle, the #1 sportsbook where winners play and never get limited. Go to pinnacle.com/inplayLIVE to sign up and get in the game.
Welcome to Behind the Lines, powered by Pinnacle. On this week's episode, we talk NHL, NBA first-round playoffs, recap the NFL draft, Caesars refusing to pay a Chicago sports bettor over $800,000, and if we have time at the end of the show, a little rapid-fire Q&A with Pace. Mixing it up a little bit, adding some color to the show. Finally, my name is Kevin Brar, KB for short, longtime IPL member. Filling in for Shane Mercer. I believe Shane's in Zimbabwe right now trying to find a women's basketball team total to bet on. Actually, I don't know where Shane is, but one guy that's always here is the founder of inplayLIVE and CEO and one of the worst softball managers in recent history, Andrew Pace, along with one of the newest, almost soon to be the newest resident of Colorado, John Gosu Wilson. Pacer, first off, how are you? You okay?
No. Oh my God. Adding a little color to the show finally. Oh my God. Fuck. I don't even know if I heard the rest of it after that.
How are you doing?
Shane,
you okay?
Shane, your beard looks good. Your suit looks even better.
I mean, like I was saying off air, you want someone that's going to be, we got to class it up a little bit. You want someone wearing a Raptors hoodie and a Vikings hoodie to co-host to host the show, or you want someone to class it up a little bit here as well, right? Also doing my best John Gosu Vegas suit impersonation too.
Oh my God, man. Shane, you've just been one-upped in a big way. That was the best intro ever. But yeah, I'm doing great, man. Doing great.
Awesome. Gosu, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Good. It's a busy time, but doing well.
Yeah. For you're heading out to Colorado, so again, congrats on the move. And we're going to be the newest Colorado sports bettor soon to be. Lot to dive into here in this week's episode. First off, appreciate you guys asking me to host. We'll kick off talking about NBA NHL playoffs. We're at the point now where we've reached some elimination games. At this point in time, one series is over, the OKC series, which we figured would be over pretty quick. And both sports elimination games coming up. By the way, who would have thought Naz Reid would be the most clutch player so far in this NBA playoffs if we had to go through, guys? We don't need to go through every series, but we can go through a couple of them. Maybe Gosu, just talk about your favorite couple of series to watch in the NBA and NHL and what's intrigued you about them.
Yeah, I mean, I think starting with the NBA off the top, you got to go with that Nuggets Clippers series, right? Let's tie a couple of teams there. It actually looked like the Clippers were pulling away with that series after that game 3 blowout. And then Nuggets came back in game 4 really strong, had a big, huge lead, and that evaporated in the fourth quarter. And then just one of the craziest walk-off shots you'll see in basketball with that putback. It's like shades of NC State against Phi Slamma Jamma with Valvano running on the floor. So that was a crazy one. And then that Rockets Warriors series with no Butler is really close, and it's a grinder. That's like some mid 90s basketball being played in those games where, like, if you can get to 100 points, you're just almost guaranteed to win, it seems like, in that series. So those have been really good. On the NHL side, I think like that I was kind of surprised with when the Jets went up 2-0 and then St. Louis has really just dumpstered them the last 2 games. I've watched pretty much all of that series. I mean, in those last 2 games, like, I think Hellebuck got pulled in both of those games, right? Like he's been real bad. So that series was interesting. And then I think Dallas, Colorado, I think is tied 2-2. And that's kind of like back and forth. Like, seems like home ice isn't really doing much there, and that's just kind of like been a wild one. Some high scoring games, and then the Oilers being down the last 2 games, coming back and winning those games. Good for some of my square butter parlays that I keep hitting on those at the last second somehow. So yeah, there's been some really, really good first round series.
John, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up your advised wagers from back in February that are now coming into fruition. So the Bucks to win the East, obviously that one is dead. People have to know when they're listening to this. We're recording on Monday. It's airing on Wednesday. So sometimes there's a little bit of information missing when you're listening to this. But, Dame being healthy, they win game 3. There's maybe a chip in a chair there. Too bad. I hope he's going to be okay. But so Bucks to win the East is dead. Obviously, we know why you liked it at the time. Are you looking at any teams to win the East, or are you looking at any futures at all now in the playoffs? Or are you kind of done with it?
I think that there was an episode I did with Shane. I don't think you were on, where I talked about the Pacers at plus 2,800, and I think Shane bet it with me like on the podcast there. So again, it was like conflicting, obviously, with the previous Milwaukee value bet there from like a couple months ago. But the Pacers have just been one of the hottest teams in the NBA, and they look fantastic in this series. And I know Milwaukee's kind of a shell right now of what they've been in the past, but I think when we saw the draw and they were going to get Cleveland in the second round instead of Boston, 28-1 just was really appealing to me for a team that's been really, really good.
It sounds like you just bet every outcome and then give half.
The Herb school of betting. Yeah.
Pacer, cool. that LA series. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, KB. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, John's talking about that LA series. Interesting. We're recording this on Monday. We saw the game where they tied it with 30 seconds left or whatever. And I was thinking the same thing you were. Quentin Byfield, easy chance to literally clear the puck out, dump it down, whether it's an icing or not, just clear it out. It puts another 15 seconds, let's say, left. One last rush for McDavid to get it done. Highly improbable, but instead tries to make a deke and tries to, score that net, or literally possibly it cost them the game, possibly costing them the series.
Well, Bouchard pinched on that puck too. And he scored the goal.
Yep.
It was unbelievable. Like it was unbelievable. Sorry, what I was going to say is, John, are you looking at anyone in the West now that you've seen what you've seen? Like anything different than what's been advised?
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about, I think in that same pod, talked about the Clippers side, where I was actually surprised when the lines opened that the Clippers were underdogs to the Nuggets, because the Nuggets had been so bad and they're so thin. Right. And like, they're just, I mean, everybody's hurt on that team. I also don't think Jamal Murray gets enough. He hardly ever gets flack for just kind of not showing up or being out of shape, or like a lot of like leaving some hustle plays out there, which is kind of interesting to me, because I guess he's already won one. But I really like the Clippers in that series, again, even though it went against the Nuggets bet that I already have. But the Clippers were sitting there at like 17-1, I think, to win the West. And I think that if they go on to play Oklahoma City, I mean, I think they have the matchups, especially on the wings, to be able to actually keep up with them. The Oklahoma City looks fantastic, but it's just that those are the numbers. I don't really. It's hard for me to get behind like Houston or Golden State or the Wolves. Maybe I think the Wolves have probably the biggest upside out of that side of the bracket. But I just there's a lot of guys on that team I just don't really trust. So it's hard for me to want to bet them, because the number is just not good enough for me.
Sure.
Because I think Ant is just such a, everybody wants him to be the next thing. And so there's a lot, I think they get a lot of money. I think they get a lot of public money. So the number just tends to not be very good for them.
Yeah, I was surprised at how big of dogs they were against the Lakers. Like, I understand why they're an underdog, but I was surprised at how big of dogs they were. And the real dog is Anthony Edwards. Like, he's fucking insane out there. And I know Schnoz hit some clutch shots to win that game, but my God. But also, they were up 3-0 against the Nuggets, and it went to Game 7. So I don't think that series is necessarily over. I think the Lakers can easily win Game 6, and then they or Game 5, and then they got to steal one and go from there. But yeah, I mean, it's been super exciting, these playoffs. A lot of great betting opportunities for sure. KB, you've been betting much?
Yeah, absolutely. That I know we were on the Oilers plus 1.5. Even took some, go to OT money line as well to hit that when they won that game. So that was a little nice to hit that on that end.
Got to pay for your suit, right?
Yeah. And I asked JC Penny, don't worry, it's okay. No, any other series that stands out to you, Pacer, besides some of the big ones that we mentioned? Any small, like no one really talks about the Hurricanes. Is going to talk about the Hurricane series. I think the series has been sort of interesting though.
The Habs series is super interesting. The one thing I'd say, I got to be honest with you guys. I flicked the game on and I don't even know the series score until it's like the third period. Like I'm being genuine. Like I don't follow a lot of the stuff outside of what's going on. And then sometimes I'll flick open my phone. I'll be like, shit, we got like 4 elimination games tonight. This is going to be electric, right? But I think the one thing I'd say, just as we head into round 2, because as we record next week, round 2 will already be underway. Don't let the first round fool you too much. And the reason why I say that is because if you do have a team like the Thunder, obviously they're the most obvious one. Like they're the 1 seed, they just swept Memphis. There's huge advantages to getting out of your series early. Your opponents, if they go to 7 games, they play 3 extra games, there's higher probability of injury, there's greater fatigue, there's less rest. That stuff goes without say. The team that sweeps 4-0, they look brilliant. It isn't that they aren't. They got a lot of rest. They could get a little cocky. Sometimes like the drive of the team can get a little weird when you have this full week off. They could come back a little rusty. It's not to say they won't do well, but I'll never forget this game. Like never, never, never forget this game. Golden State Warriors prime season, whichever one of the ones it was, they went on to win the title this year. They came out against San Antonio after sweeping their previous opponent and lost the game by almost 40 points. At home, game 1, after having the week of rest. I think they won the series 4-1 after that. It was certainly 4-2 or better because I know I had the Warriors -1.5 in my round 2 parla. But some of these teams that get a little bit of rest, a little too much rest, don't necessarily think that they're going to come out looking as good as they have. There can be some really big upsets in game 1 of round 2. And then after that, obviously, things settle down and the best team tends to win. But something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think John was talking about the Warriors Rockets series, grinding 90s basketball, which is fun to see from an old school basketball fan. On the other side of the NHL, I definitely miss the days of seeing long OTs. I just don't think in this day and age, in this NHL, with how fast paced, how athletic the guys are, I just don't think we're going to see, I think we saw 1 double overtime game, the Devils game, but I mean, rarely are we seeing games go into the second or third overtime. I'll never forget as a kid that I think it was Pittsburgh Philly pace, 5 OTs. I get Keith buried it long. It was like, I think it ended at like 2 a.m. and started at 4 a.m. Eastern when
Eastern Joe Sakic won his first cup, I think it was like a triple or quadruple overtime. West Coast was like well past midnight. So if you watched the cup get hoisted on the East Coast, you might've been waking up in the morning. Right.
Yeah, those ones I like. And I mean, hopefully it'd be nice to get at least one, maybe a couple, some triple overtime games. They're just fun to watch in the playoffs, whether you're by yourself or with your buddies. But as you mentioned, Pace, next week we should be wrapping up round 1 series. If there's any game 7 potentially, or even starting probably some of the round 2. So we'll see what comes out of that for next week's podcast discussion. Let's move on. Let's shift gears and we'll go over to the NFL draft, 2025 draft, come and gone. Definitely one of the more interesting ones in recent years, basically mainly because of one single person who didn't get drafted till very late. We're not really even talking about Cam Ward or even the Jags moving up to the number 2 spot, which was a big deal. But yeah, of course, Shedeur Sanders projected to go top 10, at least first round from what all the mock drafts and all the analysts had. That all turns out to be completely wrong. Goes 5th round, 144th overall to the Cleveland Browns. And if that wasn't even more weird, or Brown selected Dylan Gabriel ahead of Shedeur in the 3rd round. And there's so much speculation, tons of rumors as to what happened and why, something that I guess we as a public will probably never know, why he was drafted so late, according to some of the GMs. But let's just dive into this, Gosu. I know we were ripping on Shedeur during the season with his awareness or lack of awareness for a QB is not what it should be, considering his talent, his gene pool. We can touch on that prank call incident later, but your thoughts on the whole Shedeur saga?
Yeah, I mean, obviously very surprised that he fell as far as he did. I think it's kind of interesting though one thing I wanted to zoom out on when I was thinking about this a couple of days ago was when you actually look around the NFL right now, there's really not a lot of teams who don't know who their starting quarterback is or don't have like some kind of plan. It's actually, I mean, there's a lot of bad quarterbacks. In fact, most are pretty bad, I would say, in the league right now, at least compared to the ones who you can actually win a championship with. But most of the teams have some kind of plan. So like the Colts have Anthony Richardson, who I think is terrible, but they're at least going to start with him. So that's just an example, right? So there's really not a lot of spots for guys to go at the top. And so I think it was surprising when he slid, but it actually kind of made sense if you think about him as a potential starting quarterback, because when you're someone that's like, and it's not even really his fault. I think it's obviously it's mostly around his dad and then the media coverage around him. But when you have a backup quarterback, you don't really care so much if that quarterback is the 33rd best in the league or if he's like the 80th best in the league, as long as he's not in the way or there's no controversy. Like if you have two quarterbacks, you have zero quarterbacks, right? So if the media is focused around your backup quarterback, it's kind of why I think people like Jay Cutler and like Tim Tebow. Tebow was bad, but it's like nobody wanted him on their team because he's just a distraction and he's not actually playing. Like nobody wanted Cutler as a backup quarterback because he's like always in the news with some celebrity girlfriend or he's like getting arrested for something or whatever, right? It's like, well, that's fine if he's actually playing at a high level and he's starting for my team and we're winning games. But if they're just on the bench, what's the point? So I think like seeing somebody slide despite the talent, it kind of makes sense from a framework of I wouldn't draft him to be my backup quarterback, because then all the media is going to want to talk about is when am I going to make him my starter, or why isn't he playing, or why isn't he seeing time? I don't want Dion tweeting about it and like all that kind of stuff, right? So it kind of made sense to me the more it happened, but I was definitely shocked when he didn't go in the first 2 or 3 rounds.
It's so funny you say that, because that's like, it's so simple and it's genius. Like that is genius. What you just said, it makes so much sense. I would never fucking want Tim Tebow on my team now. I remember him throwing a back fade end zone touchdown in the preseason for the Patriots, and everyone thought he'd made the team. And when they cut him, people couldn't. They're like, why wouldn't Bill Belichick keep him? Everyone wanted him to have a job. Everyone wanted Johnny Manziel to have a job.
Right.
Well, he's a huge fucking distraction.
Yeah, Kaepernick. Kaepernick's the obvious one, right?
The Sanders storyline is going to be crazy. You're so right. It's gonna be very bad for the Browns. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So I mean, that's like, like it was the whole Colin Kaepernick thing. Like even if he's in the top 30 quarterbacks, but he's not in the top 15 or 20, it just doesn't make sense to have him on a team when he's just going to be a distraction and you can't win it. Like there's no ceiling where you're winning a Super Bowl with him, right? Like it's just simply not worth it from like a business standpoint to want to deal with it. So,
yeah. Speaking of business standpoint, there was a clip I saw yesterday, but it was an old clip. I don't know if you guys had seen this. And it's Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders working out together. And Cam Ward just rips Shedeur over and over, but like in kind of a professional way. And I haven't been the biggest Cam Ward fan. It made me be like, shit, this guy could be really good. But he's like, he made fun of him like running out of breath. And he's like, go drink some water. And Shedeur's like, I don't drink water. I only drink Gatorade because they pay me. And I was just like, oh man, there's so much wrong with that statement, because Gatorade is terrible for you as an athlete. Number one. Number two, like that's the way you're talking, when how old is Shedeur? Like 20, 21? I have no idea how old he is. Maybe he's 22. I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't want anything to do with him after I just saw that one clip alone.
Yeah. And, there's a difference between, like when everybody made fun of like the Caleb Williams thing, talking about owning a team. And I think a lot of the stuff around Caleb Williams is kind of, I don't say media created. It was definitely the media ran with a lot of the narratives around him specifically, but he has, people believe he has such an elite talent ceiling that you can win with him. And they knew from day one he would be a starter. So there's no reason to pass on that when you know that there's just an obvious path that he's going to be in the limelight no matter what. So you don't have to deal. It's not a distraction necessarily, right? Because your starting quarterback's always going to be in the media. But it's when it's like I'm looking at it potentially value on a guy falling to be my backup quarterback. Just why deal with that?
Yeah.
So
any surprises in the draft there, KB, besides Shedeur?
I mean, obviously the Shedeur, yeah, and the big one was Jacksonville moving up and somehow getting the number 2 pick from Cleveland, trading those draft picks to go and grab Travis Hunter, which was never on the radar until literally hours before. I think Cleveland came out and said,
"Did you bet the draft?"
I did. I lost money on Cleveland betting, taking Travis Hunter. Yes.
Oh, yeah. So I heard a bunch of people did that.
You would have
social
won if you took
media.
Travis Hunter to go 2 overall, but you lost because Cleveland traded that pick, right? So, I mean, in the end, it is what it is. But, I mean, I think the reason the trade is so shocking just because it was a deal that you never see in the NFL. And Gosu, a little trivia question here, but I don't know if you've already seen this or not, but the Jags became the first team in almost 30 years to make a trade into the top 2 and not take a quarterback with that pick. Last time it happened, Gosu, 1997. Do you know who it was?
1997.
Not a quarterback.
If I give you the team, it'll give it away.
Oh.
But it was the LA Rams, or what I guess it would have been St. Louis Rams back then.
St. Louis Rams.
But it was the Rams. Yes. 97.
Give it away. Oh, like wasn't Holt? Or no, Marshall Faulk.
No, Andrew, your father. Original father.
My father?
Yes.
Dad? Mark Andrews?
What? No, your actual father. Your actual father with
Orlando
with the last. Yes, there it is.
Yeah.
That was the last time.
Hold on. So it's been freaking like almost 30 years since someone traded up for a top 10 pick
and not
Top
drafted.
10?
Yeah,
and not drafted a quarterback.
Whoa. Top two.
Oh, top 2 pick.
And not taking a quarterback. Yes. Orlando Pace. I believe the Jets had the first pick that year in 97. But yeah, Orlando Pace was the last time in that. So
I'll tell you guys what I was most surprised by in the draft. I didn't follow this thing like I usually do. I couldn't believe what the Bears did with drafting that tight end that they didn't need to draft. That was just weird to me. And I think about sometimes how impactful a player can be. So like Captain Jack from Ohio State, like I don't know anything about where this guy's projected to go. I don't know if he's projected top 10. I don't know if he's a first rounder. When I see a team draft that man, I know they have got a TJ Watt type player. He's a fucking leader. He's an absolutely electric player capable of changing the game at any moment. But separately of that, people like that have the ability to shift the people around them. And I'm sorry, I don't care if you are Rob Gronkowski or Travis Kelce. It is crazy to me to take a flyer on a tight end that wasn't even projected in the first round when you could have gotten him on your next draft pick. I don't understand that. So I thought that was a little Chicago-y. Don't know what their plan is. Maybe they'll make me eat my words there. But yeah, I thought that one was really strange.
I want to circle back to that whole Shedeur saga with the prank call and stuff. And I know a lot of people were laughing about it and whatnot. But yeah, I just want to get thoughts on, because it's just like, that's not one of the cruelest things that you can do for a guy who's, waiting to get drafted. Like, I don't know what is. So not the fact that it came from a random person, the fact that it came from,
it wasn't random.
No, it was Jeff Albrich's son, the defensive coordinator for like the fact that it came. So basically the son was at the parents' house. He saw an iPad and it had Shedeur's private number that he had just for that draft day or for the draft there, and his phone number. So he came across it, I guess, wrote it down, and then, made the call. And I believe he pretended to be Saints GM, the Saints general manager, and told Sanders that they'd be taking him with their next pick. And obviously, Shedeur's, who's live streaming it, as a lot of people are nowadays doing it. And so he's obviously going nuts. And then whoever was on the phone, I don't know if it was Albrich or someone else, saying that he'd have to wait a little longer. Like, you hear that, you're thinking it's like I don't know. Gosu, just your thoughts on that, because that's something that's as cruel as you can do for someone waiting to be drafted, no matter how much of a clown or goofball you may think of that other person.
Yeah. It's kind of sad and unfortunate. Just like I guess that guy's like that kid's in college or whatever, so it sounds like something that people would do around that age. The broader danger, I thought, from like the narrative around it was that because it's a private phone number, that it had to have been somebody within the league, right? Or and so like then you start to put on like your collusion conspiracy hat, right? So then it's like you got people going online talking about how like the owners are trying to keep them out of the league, and like all these like narratives around like the same kind of stuff you hear with like Kaepernick or Tebow or those guys, and it's just at the end of the day, you could we just went through, you can come up with very logical reasons why the situation plays out the way it does. But, I think everybody has a real conspiracy mind sometimes, and it's like when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. And so if you can find a way to make it look orchestrated or something, you can do that. So I think that a lot of that stuff started specifically because of that prank call. Right. And then it's people have to be in on this because it's the only way they would get the number. So right. I think that to me was kind of the worst thing that came out of that was just that narrative started to crop up and even made mainstream, media discourse.
I think there's a reason I'm not a father. I'd kill my kid if I was that kid's dad. I'd fucking kill him. I'd crucify the kid for that. It's shitty behavior, and you're exploiting your dad's position in the NFL to do that. Oh man,
that's bad.
Oh, that's bad. That to me is as close to. There's a lot of criminal behavior that you could actually be in jail for that I'd be less mad at my son for than doing that, because that's a severe breach of trust.
Yeah, sad. Yeah, sad to see. It's. I mean, social media is just, we always talk about the goods and bads of it, and that's an incident where it's just an awful example of how to use social media to
totally. Hey KB, before you dive in here, dude, so we should let people know who you are. I know obviously you've been a long-time listener of Behind the Lines, and I think you've commented sarcastically on every single episode we've ever shot, but you've made some jokes about being host. So why don't you give us just a little Cole's Notes? How did you and I meet? Your background as a bettor, some of the different things you've done, maybe. Because I know you've certainly gone outside the box, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, there's a lot of different edges you were chasing down back in the day, a lot of which have disappeared. Right, because you did find success with stuff, and what brings you into the driver's seat dressed so well? Fake Shane,
or is Shane fake KB? That's
there
theory.
We go.
No. So I came on inplayLIVE November 2020. Yeah, just a few months after you initially started. So not OG, but shortly
That's
after.
OG KB. That is, it doesn't get any more OG than that. It doesn't get any more.
OG would be when you were hitting 20-1 Stanley Cup bets in that first when I missed out on those.
Sure.
You know what I'm talking about. That's what I consider OG.
That was the bubble playoff where there's no fans. That was when we launched. That was when we launched our product. So you would have been. So I came in just the first NHL season after that. Yeah.
Shortly after, I came in as just a guy. I'm from Vancouver. Born and raised, so playing sports action as a kid, like a lot of us, we're doing, just not great sports bettors. Came across one of your ads, of course, jumped in, and liked what I saw. I remember I just started off with $100 in my Bet365 back when it was good to use, and first day I remember I lost it all because it was you and I think you were in Whistler for one of the streams when you used to do the streams in Whistler, and Ritzker was there. And you guys were talking about these pregame bets, and I'll never forget it. My first bet ever with inplayLIVE was a pregame wide receiver yards over by a guy who doesn't play in the league, couldn't even tell you where he is now. But Ritzker called him, and you're like, Ritzker, what do you think about this guy Andy Isabella for over 10.5 receiving yards? And Ritzker's like, yeah, he can get it in one catch. Yeah, he's just throw bombs to him and he'll catch it. And I'm listening. I'm like, never heard of this guy. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll take Andy's. And I've watched NFL as a kid. I know players, inside out and whatnot. So I'm like, yeah, sure. I've never heard of this guy. I'm like, okay, sure. And took it, and then obviously lost that. He didn't even. I don't even think he caught a ball, of course. And then it was not a good first day. I remember that. And then I lost. I'm like, what is going on?
Hold on, though. You put your whole bankroll on the first.
No. Throughout the stream, I think I put $10 on it, right? And then
okay.
And then throughout the stream, I was just betting it. It was not a good start initially. So there goes $100. So I'm like, Jesus Christ! I was like, who are these clowns? Like, I'm like, do I need to? Like 1 month and I'm gone, but. obviously after that, learning the strategies, watching the courses, master classes, I definitely think, helped, change my life, helped change my perspective on betting. I felt like one of the first ones to, we talk about, Tim and Sean doing the Yerpy stuff, which is great. I remember doing that 4 or 5 years ago when before people were doing it, when you were getting solid odds and they were hitting at a better rate before all the sort of new inventions or technology, whatever you want to call it, before the ballparks were, getting smaller. So definitely I felt like there was a better edge than there is now, I think. Although there's still an edge, if you can find it. But and then NBA First Baskets, as you know, when we were first doing it, I was on the NBA First Basket train back when you were getting 15 to 1 on some guys to shoot the first basket. Jaylen Brown as a Celtic before Porzingis came in was always, hitting first baskets at a ridiculous clip. Porzingis, when he was on, I can't remember who he was on before Boston, whether it was the Knicks or Dallas, I don't know. But anyways, he was one of the top guys. So there was definitely an edge. And now you're looking at guys like Giannis, will play plus 250 for a first basket. Like the edge is gone there. So it's just not worth playing that anymore. So like you said, at inplayLIVE, one thing we do here is always adapt and improve and learn, right? So that's been my journey. So yeah, if I were to say, 6-figure better, yes, a few times over. And I would say, when it comes to probably 60-40 IPL to, my own strategies when it comes to hitting that 6-figure mark. So maybe a little different than some people that, that maybe tail IPL, to the core. I would, and being honest, I would probably say I tail picks probably maybe 60% of the picks. If, in my mind, if I'm like, you know what, I'm okay if I don't bet this just because it hasn't been working for a few times. And once it hits, okay, I'll take it. And that's just the way I am. I mean, there's nothing wrong with you taking it all. You're still going to get ahead, but that's just the way I do it. I think before you always have that FOMO. We always talk about the number one thing that you teach new bettors coming to IPL is having that FOMO. Oh no, you're going to miss a bet, or you're driving. Oh no, I'm driving. I'm going to miss a bet. Pull over and make a bet or whatever it is, and you get to that stage eventually where it's like, I'll listen to the stream, but if it's a bet that's called and I don't take it, and it wins, great for the team, but for me, it's not the end of the world because I know there's going to be hundreds of thousands and more that are coming out.
Totally, and it's such a healthier approach to the whole process. There's an actually interesting little story that came out of inplayLIVE this past week, and we just lost a bet. People were all pissed off. The guy comes in the chat. He's like, "Yo, Pace, just hit the 5-figure club after 2 years with inplayLIVE," and I'm sitting there going, like, we just got kicked in the nuts. This guy's coming in with his success story. And the reason why I bring it up is because two things. Number one, took this guy 2 years to do it. And after that message, he said, basically, he had to get out of his own way for the first year entirely. Right. So he wasn't winning. And then you got to recoup what he's lost and then get up to this 5-figure mark, which he's done, which is amazing. And the reason why I bring that up in relation to your story isn't actually the same, but what it is when you come in as a bettor and you have your own information, your own knowledge, your own sort of bias and maybe strategies that have potentially worked in the past, or maybe they worked at a time that that almost created a perception in your head that they do work when in fact there isn't an EV there. It's hard to drop all of that. It really, really is. Now, the best advice that I could give to someone is just follow us to start as you learn, obviously. And then of course there's going to be some sort of branch out, for some people that's hitting 5 figures, for some people it's hitting 6 figures. And for some people, they can never do that. They don't get out of their way and they fail before they even get started. But in your case, the reason why I bring that up is because in your case, it sounds to me like you were always committed to EV with everything that you were trying. So when things didn't work, you moved on. When things did work, you hit it while you could and then adjusted from there. And you don't have to be a guy that's 100% inplayLIVE. You're passionate about this stuff. Clearly, you have way better player and personnel knowledge than I ever have or ever will. So that leads you to look at things that I'm not going to necessarily look at. And sometimes that's going to be some dips that I didn't have and vice versa. You don't dip when I did. Right. And I couldn't agree with you more. Like, I think if you're hanging tooth and nail on every pick, number one, I don't think it's healthy. And number two, I don't think it's smart. I think there's a lot of bets that get called, even by myself, that you could probably have good reason to pass on. And if you do and it wins, you have to be comfortable with that moment. So I cannot tell you guys how often, like, I'll shoot a gun or support the team when I didn't have the bet. Like, it's a lot of times. So, you gotta have your own journey. And it sounds like that's kind of precisely what you've done. So yeah, big congrats on the success. You've really stuck with it. You've ridden every down wave we've thrown at you, which, as you probably know, is not easy to get through sometimes. Right.
You zoom out, like Gosu has said a few podcasts back, right? Look at the big picture, see where you're at, right? It makes a world of difference. It's so easy for us to live in the moment and get pissed off and want to punch a wall or whatever it is when you lose a bet where you think you should have won, you lose on a last minute 3 or whatever it is that we've been, Halliburtoned on a few times. But at the same time, you zoom out and it's like, like you said, you either overexposed, for whatever reason, but you step out and take a look back and you see that we've actually done incredibly well, not just this month, but you can go back to 2025 or the NFL season or whatever season you want to look at.
Totally.
Right.
Totally. And I think one of the biggest things that people struggle with in the group will be like access to books or access to outs or, access to maybe specific odds in specific situations. And I think firsthand, you're not waiting on a call from us to validate something. You see that soft line, you hit it. I never called it or I give you a reason not to like it. Doesn't matter. You're already in. You made the decision at the time you made it, right? And there definitely are people where they won't get limited on BetMGM, and it's because we're not necessarily calling their lines, and they didn't individually have the ability to exploit the sports book that's so highly exploitable. So the journey as a bettor, we can hold your hands and we can call some picks and things like that live, but at the same time, if you don't transition into being able to identify some of those things yourself, it probably isn't going to be for you long term. The other thing with that same point is, as a community, when you have hundreds of people looking at this, and I don't have a BetMGM as an example, just to go back to that same point, someone else does. They see the line, they call it out. And we go, oh shit, this is a great opportunity. And many others are then able to get in and thank that person for it. So the power of the community with people that think the same way is tremendous. So you've been a big part of that. I know there's other things that you've worked on, some hockey stuff as well and things like that, that there's other people in the group that you've bbeen able to say, hey, what about this? What about that? And it's all led to, I think, overall positivity. So I want to thank you for all your support over the years, because you've been to a few inplayLIVE events, lost a few softball finals with me, and it's been fun.
Many more to come, probably. If you keep drafting like that, many more to come. No, appreciate the kind words.
That should be a whole episode on its own.
Yeah. Like, we should get our guests.
We get in the draft room. Fuck this Shedeur Sanders shit. Why did Pace draft VH? And we go into the real nitty gritty of this whole fucking thing. Do you know some of the backstory of that? So everyone knew that this guy had a sort of a illustrious baseball career based on his word. Everyone. I thought no one else knew. That was my personal perception heading into the draft. Meanwhile, Kenny fucking got a photo of the guy. Do you know about this?
No, I don't. I don't know.
So we're in the draft room and Kenny's like, hey, let's get a gauge on what this guy looks like, right? So he says in the most heterosexual way, can you please send me a selfie? So, he takes the picture of him pole dancing, sends it back to Kenny. And sure enough, Kenny passes on him, and then he sees I draft him, and he just blew up laughing. He's like, this guy is not going to be the baseball superstar that he claims to be. But the thing is like, I'm happy I drafted him because it led to a great story. He's a great guy to hang out with. Obviously, it's a lot of fun.
Great gifts.
And, yeah, it's forever been a running inside joke inside the group. Todd, if you're listening, I love you, buddy.
Yeah, Meeker VH is a legend. Before we jump onto the next topic, just want to mention the Pinnacle contest. I know you guys were talking about it last week on the podcast where the guy didn't claim it. So IPL and Pinnacle contest. If you want to win $1,000 US, which I think is 85,000 rupees, make at least a $10 wager on Pinnacle. Take a screenshot, send it to inplayLIVE. Do they send it on social media? Do they slip into your DMs?
No,
send it on Discord? How do they do it?
You got to join our free Discord, send it to Raj. Or if you're in the group already, send it to Raj. Yep.
And that guy still hasn't claimed it? Who won?
He has not claimed it. And even in the group chat, you see, I'm like, there he is, guys. I'm like, it's Nick. All caps.
And nobody's telling him, and nobody wants to help him out.
Yeah. I think at this point it's 2,000. I don't know. We can't keep rolling it over. But yeah, anyways, that's how you get entered, no matter the amount for the next entry. Yeah.
Sounds good. Let's move on here. Someone posted this in our Discord. I saw it as well on YouTube, I think yesterday or the day before, story of a 24-year-old Chicago resident, Thomas McPeak, who won $800,000 in a bunch of different parlay bets that he placed at kiosks at casinos in Illinois and Iowa. So then he goes to the casinos to claim the winnings. The casinos, which are both owned by Caesars, refused to pay him, voided the bets, and then banned him. So this guy's like an advantage player. What he does is places a bunch of small bets at kiosks because he doesn't want to do one large wager. He says he wants to stay under the radar, not go to the ticket windows. He says he'll even disguise himself so he doesn't get banned. Ironically, he did the same thing in Michigan City at a FanDuel casino. They paid him the $127,000 he won, and then they banned him. So he ends up filing a complaint with the state regulators in Iowa and Indiana, and the regulators both sided with the states. So Caesar's basically says he circumvented the rules. They showed him terms and conditions, like these anti-money laundering rules, repeat wager policies. I mean, this isn't the first time we've seen stuff like this. Like, this pays better than probably anybody, but you feel for this guy and just your thoughts on it.
They took his bet. So like this isn't like, who didn't pay me recently. This isn't like fucking Duck Dice Casino that stole, 90 G's from me. This is Caesar's Sportsbook. They took the bets, right? Like, he obviously knows what he's doing. It sounds like he exploited a loophole. Do you know if it was this is multiple bets on different events, or is this one different? Like, events. I know he made multiple bets.
Yeah.
But is it are they all the same across all these different kiosks that all were the same wager?
Some were, yes. So some are repeat wagers, but he also had other ones that weren't repeat. Like, let's say he had 80 tickets. I'm guessing he probably had 20 tickets that were similar, 20 tickets, and he placed at two different casinos.
And different events, but like a similar type EV strategy that he had found, maybe some correlated stuff. Wow. I mean, that's just insane. I totally understand banning him. I don't support that. I understand that. They got to pay him. Like, they got to fucking pay him his money. And I'm hoping that the regulator would side with him on him getting his funds. He wasn't banned outside of Michigan, was he? That's the one thing that maybe I could say they'd have a leg to stand on, is if they said, you're banned from Michigan casinos and this bans you nationwide across all Caesars Entertainment products and lists all the brands, and he knew that and went in and did it anyways. That's the one leg I think they could have to stand on. Again, I don't support that, but that would be the situation. Now, those kiosks, if people are not familiar with them, you don't need to put a player's card in to make a bet. So the other side of it is, no matter what the casino, and there's a reason why the limits on the kiosks are lower. It's because they know someone can walk in that is an advantage player and place bets there. The reason why advantage players do use them is because of that. And the reason why advantage players don't use them is because the limits might be a little too low, that it might be too cumbersome to go up and down the strip or wherever the hell it is that you are placing these bets. It can be a little bit annoying and just a lot to deal with. Like, I know firsthand, if the max bet was $250 at this one kiosk, I'm not trekking down to 10 different locations to get the money down that I want. I just wouldn't do that personally. So I guess what I'm getting at there is, because they run their operation that way, even if they did ban them from everywhere, it's like, well, this is why you have the limits so low on these things. So, you should probably just pay the guy out from a good publicity standpoint and both agree to move on from each other as partners. The other thing too is if this guy's putting on fucking face masks and trying to be fake Shane like you are, growing a beard overnight and to look like someone else or whatever it is that he's doing, it's like, dude, be a little bit more creative, because then it's like you're walking into a casino dressed up as someone else. Like, that's a huge red flag. Like, find a buddy that you can work with,
Yep.
That isn't bad.
Absolutely. Yep. 100%. When it comes to like the repeat wagering policy, which I guess they have, and he's making the same bet, that obviously that's a strong case for them to be like, you weren't following terms and conditions. Boom, we're boarding everything. Or are you still like, he still should be paid out and then banned?
Repeat wager policy. Fuck off. Sure. Yeah, I guess that's a leg to I'm just always going to side with the player.
Me too.
Yeah. Repeat wager policy. Like, you took the bet. That's all I can say. Like, so we had the guy on that looks at, like, obviously players and corruption and manipulation, and how when money comes in on an event, that can be a huge triggering red flag. Caesars could shut the event down before it started if they didn't like the way the bets were coming in, and void it before it started. You can't void it after it's played out. You just can't.
Exactly. Hopefully he gets his money back. I think they basically voided everything, gave him money back, I think, on the losing bets as well that he had put in. So we'll see we'll see what happens with that anyways. But let's move on here before we.
I bid him adieu.
Yeah.
And if he wants to come on the show, we'd be happy to talk to him. I'm sure absolutely. He's listening, AKB. One of our many hundreds of listeners.
One of our tens of listeners. Well, absolutely. Let's move on. As a business owner, I want to touch on this because this is involving you. Face of the company. You're as a face of the company, you're always going to be faced with scrutiny. And the more successful you are, the more likely it is. That's just the world we live in. Social media makes it very easy to do that. You could be doing 99% of things right, and the 1%, when you're successful, people will rip you for it. You take a Sharks 3P money line bet, you're going to get ripped for it. Mostly from me. Another story. So last week, guy by the name of Josh, right, commented on one of your betting videos on Pinnacle, I think, where you're helping sports bettors gain knowledge about different types of bets, strategies, outcomes, etc. So this Josh guy comments, I think he commented scam or whatever he commented, saying, can't trust this guy, whatever it was. Anyways, it was negative comments, basically just trying to discredit you. Not the first time that's happened to you. Reading the comment, definitely not the last, let's be honest. And this isn't coming on to rip on the guy, but my question to you is, when you see this, when you see those negative comments, that's a lot of thick skin you have to be doing this day in, day out. Does it not affect you as much as it did, let's say, when you first opened inplayLIVE, and sort of what's changed? Has it just become you just sort of getting, used to all this scrutiny and hate that's come with it? Just talk about this.
Yeah. I mean, I got banned on Facebook, dude. That's a really good question. So I think there's a lot of positive. There's a lot of validation in being in a position like that. So we just talked about Shedeur Sanders for like however long. He'll never hear our opinion on him. He shouldn't care about our opinion either. Aaron Rodgers has a great statement. Don't care about the opinions of someone that you wouldn't ask for advice. So I don't think I'd be asking this Josh guy for advice anytime soon. But at the same time, I have a lot of haters that I would ask advice for, because maybe they were a member at some time that left and actually have good feedback for me that could help. Because you actually reference like the 99%. Well, people will harp on the 1%. I've given people ample 1% to talk shit about me. There's no question about that. So in this particular case, I don't believe this person worked with us or was a member in any capacity. And if they were, I don't think they gave us an honest shot. So that one really, I just kind of laugh at. It doesn't really bug me too much. But yeah, it certainly used to bug me. And there is actually a professional athlete that I look to sometimes. It's Kevin Durant. So KD has notoriously engaged with his haters, and I think to his own demise and detriment. Someone posts something about him losing a bet for him. Someone posts something about him missing a shot, that he's trash. It really all started when he made the move to Golden State, and he started getting just absolutely ripped for like copping out of a title, because his team was up 3-1 on the Warriors in the West Final. You know, the previous year, you would think you'd grit your teeth and figure out a way to beat them. Instead, he joined them. Rather than just, going, I'm going to focus on my game and let the haters hate and stay away from this kind of stuff and focus on the positive. He really dove in the gutters with all the people hating on him. And I remember seeing that and thinking to myself, that was not the best way to handle this for someone in his shoes. Now, I am certainly no online presence like Kevin Durant or several other millions of people that would be, bigger online presence or social leaders or whatever in the space. But, when that stuff does come, it used to bug me, and it really doesn't anymore. I think I can hang my hat on guys like you, KB, where, there's been times where you've probably questioned a lot of the stuff that I've done. You've been around long enough to make fun of me as much as you want, whether it's serious or at times and whether it isn't at others. But, at the end of the day, like if I never spoke to you again, which is the case with some of the members that joined around the time that you came by, and they did talk shit about me. There's two things that I will look at. Number one, can I have a productive conversation with this person that will actually help myself and inplayLIVE for the future, which I've had many of those conversations. Number two, I can go to sleep at night knowing I made a positive impact on that person's betting journey. And I just make peace with those two things. Improve where I can and hope that I help them as a part of their journey. Don't think this Josh guy falls into those categories, though.
I don't think so either. Hats off to you. Thick skin and definitely always being the bigger person for the most part, it seems like, toothpaste. So again, hats off to you. I want to finish off the show with a little rapid fire Q&A, just questions that I've always had. Wanted to ask you in case I ever got the chance 48 weeks later to host an episode of Behind the Lines. And all this is answer this as if since you started IPL, not beforehand, betting wise, but since you started inplayLIVE. Okay.
inplayLIVE.
So from 2020 August, let's say, or whatever, in June or whatever it is. So first one is, and try and keep it as quick as possible, biggest lesson you've learned as a sports bettor since starting IPL.
Max bet isn't the solution.
Biggest lesson you've learned as a CEO since starting inplayLIVE.
Whoa. You don't have all the answers.
If you could change one thing about inplayLIVE since you started it, what would you change?
Oh, so like I could go back in time, or yep. I make the November 2022. I reference that all the time. I would go back in time and tell myself all the lessons that I've learned since then, and not handle that month and beyond the same way that I did.
For reference, that was one of the worst months in
the
IPL?
Worst betting month of my entire life.
Of your entire, okay.
And we had a lot more members then than we do today. Right.
Your favorite IPL strategy that the books have adjusted to and we no longer bet it, or bet it as often, what would it be? Without giving it away, maybe you could just give us a sport.
Teams kneeling out in the NFL.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That was a great strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. 5 years into inplayLIVE coming up here. You're on streams from day, sometimes basically from morning all the way to late night. A lot of times, best advice you can give people that are on the streams with you, that have spouses or partners and are in morning to night.
Transparency is, there's no substitute for honesty and transparency. Sit whomever you need down, tell them what your goals are and why you're attempting the journey, and never be dishonest about it. That can sometimes mean Monday morning, you're not betting and a message goes out with a calendar to the team. This is when I'm working this week. are there any issues with this? Will this be okay? Maybe that's even a month ahead. But those conversations have to happen, and they have to happen before, not after. When those conversations happen after that, you're on the defensive.
Last one. If you hadn't found IPL or even sports betting, what would you be doing? What would Andrew Pace be doing right now?
Oh, man. I think definitely something similar. Like I did the poker thing. I was in finance. God, that's a really good question. I don't know, man. I'd probably be betting on if I couldn't bet on a sports book, I'd probably be at a local street basketball game betting on the sidelines with some people that would try to take my money. I don't know. Definitely something to do with sports. Like that's what I can say confidently, because even when I'm not talking about sports or working with inplayLIVE or actually betting on sports, I tend to be in some capacity playing some sort of sport or wishing I was playing some sort of sport. So yeah, I just love the whole sports entertainment, and obviously betting side of things.
Future pickleball pro, the tour. You might be signing up for the tour.
Right? That would be insane, but no, I'm not there.
That's it for me as far as questions go. Is there anything else that you want to mention to anybody listening, watching this podcast coming up for this weekend, for next week?
I don't know. I mean, we're heading into what I would consider to be the downtime of betting, and I think every bettor's journey is different, but there's definitely that sort of tone at Bet Bash that for the most part, most people don't bet baseball. Approach the off season with the utmost level of discipline, health, balance, and take that same EV approach into that time of year. That what I just said means something different for everyone that hears it. But for me, that means, maybe for you too, KB, I'm not sure. I'll ask you the same question. That means I'm going to focus on the CFL, which is a harder time of year to get money down and a harder sport to get money down on, and less outs. So like, even if you do have a book that you can get some money down, oftentimes the max bets will be smaller than any other sport that we wager on. So you have to be content with different levels of success and not chase it somewhere else. So last summer for me was by far, like not even close, my most profitable summer that I've ever had. But I think I made more on like the first NFL Sunday than I did the entire summer. And that wasn't because the ROI was higher, it was less. On the season I'm referencing, it was actually less. So the CFL ROI was higher than the NFL. It wasn't that we did something different or better. It was simply an equation of being able to get more money down and a higher volume. So, you have to adjust and be content with what you do have and the opportunities that are in front of you. And sometimes that means for bettors that do bet quite a bit of money, you do lower things and you just become comfortable with that. And sometimes that means like my full unit is a couple $1,000 instead of, into the 5 figures or well into the 5 figures. So yeah, I'll actually ask you that question as we head into, obviously, the start of the summer here around the corner. Do you bet much, and what do you plan on betting this summer?
Yeah, I'm still betting quite a bit. Definitely. I mean, nowadays, over the last few years, you look at the Stanley Cup finals and the NBA finals, they go into June where it's 30 degrees out and there's still hockey being played. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like instead of having June, July, August off or whatever, like it's literally July and then August, we're right into NFL preseason. So it's not like it's as long as a break as it
like
used
6
to
weeks.
be. Yeah, it's not long, absolutely. But yeah, absolutely, I'll be in on CFL. Don't forget, tennis season right around the corner as far as majors go. French Open starts next month. I know we do really well on some of these tennis strategies that a few of the members have. Other than that, I'll be in on baseball quite a bit. I'll definitely be doing a lot more baseball player. Yeah, player props are always fun. And I scale down big time. Like I'm doing a 10th of a unit or an 1/8 of a unit just on a few different player props, just to have skin in the game, and just to sort of keep betting, keep the mind sharp a little bit as well. Just going into before we sort of ramp things up. So that's basically what I normally do for the last couple of summers.
Right. So you're not picking too many winners in baseball. It's more about batter pitcher matchups.
Yep. Strikeouts, hits, runs, RBIs, pitcher outs, whatever it may be. So just looking at some data and strategy and just sort of seeing if there's any edges that I can find there. But like I said, it's very small stuff.
Right on. Cool. Well, KB, you are a natural born fake Shane, so we appreciate you popping on the show. I messaged KB last night, so he had what'd you have, like 12 hours to prepare, including sleep time and time to sleep?
Yeah,
so
if
like
that.
a couple hours.
Oh, good. Not the first time, not the last time. I've had, less than a few hours notice to prep for this stuff. Been doing it for a while, so I appreciate that. Hopefully I don't have to wait long for the next time to come and jump on as a guest host whenever needed.
Well, I think the thing is someone like yourself is, we know that you're kidding, but then that makes us wonder when you're serious. So it's like he's talking about hosting our podcast every week. We're like, hey, he's clearly kidding, but the opportunity came, and look at you, man. Shane's got some big shoes to fill next week.
I'm only a size 9.5. It's not that big. All right. Well, hey, that does it for another episode of Behind the Lines. Thanks to you, Pace, and to Shane as well for again letting me guest host. I'm KB. Thanks for watching or listening. And to quote our friend Shane Mercer, until next time, keep beating those books.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join in Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.